Welcome back. Today, we're bringing the ancient world to life in this explainer on Athenaze chapter 14. We're stepping right onto the legendary battlefield of Thermopylae, or, as you'll see it written in ancient Greek, he entais Thermopylaes mache. Instead of just staring at dry vocabulary lists, we're going to learn our Greek words organically. We'll follow the chronological drama of literally one of the most famous last stands in human history. We'll explore the clash between the massive Persian army and the brave 300 Spartans, and arm ourselves with the essential Greek vocabulary to actually tell that story along the way.
Okay, let's dive right into our agenda for this explainer. We'll follow the progression of the battle in 4 acts. First, the Persian threat approaches. Second, defending the Narrows. Third, clash with the Immortals. And finally, the Stone Lion legacy.
Act 1. The Persian threat approaches.
Just imagine the sheer dread weighing down on the Greek defenders as King Xerxes arrives at the pass. But before a single sword is even swung, an intense psychological warfare begins. According to our historical texts within the Athenaze chapter, Xerxes arrives at the pass of Thermopylae and just stops. Literally, he waits there for 4 entire days. Why? Well, he's looking across the field at the vastly outnumbered Greeks, and he fully expects them to be completely overwhelmed by the staggering magnitude of his forces. He was basically just waiting for them to run away in terror.
So, to understand exactly what the Greeks were facing, we need to introduce our first crucial Greek vocabulary word, stratos, meaning army. But listen, in this context, we aren't just talking about a small band of fighters. The Persian stratos was a massive, multinational military juggernaut. It represents the overwhelming magnitude of the threat right on the Greek doorstep. And you might actually recognize this ancient root in our modern English word strategy, which fundamentally is just the art of leading an army.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the Greek language functions by building on its roots. Once you know the core noun stratos, meaning the army as a whole, you instantly hold the key to a whole family of related words. From stratos, we get stratiotes, which is the individual soldier fighting within that unit, and strategia, which refers to the actual expedition or the military campaign they're embarking on. Learning just one root acts like a sort of etymological hook, unlocking an entire military vocabulary for us.
So the absolutely crucial point here is the impossible mathematics of this ancient encounter. On one side we have the Persians, Persai, described with the adjective polloi, meaning many. Facing them are the Greeks, Hellenes, whose defining adjective is oligoi, meaning few. This stark contrast between the polloi and the oligoi is the central dramatic engine of Thermopylae. How do the few ever hope to stand against the many? Act 2. Defending the Narrows. Let's look at the tactical advantage.
When you are the few, the oligai, you really have to level the playing field. By the 5th day, Xerxes' patience runs out. Deeply frustrated, he finally orders his army to attack. But the Spartan king Leonidas in Greek, and his legendary 300 Spartans are holding a very specific tactical geographic choke point. They aren't just standing out in some open, vulnerable field waiting to be surrounded.
This brings us right to a brilliant tactical word, stena, meaning the Narrows. Thermopylae literally translates to the hot gates, referring to this incredibly narrow coastal passage. And this geographical feature was absolutely crucial to the Greek defense. Because they fought in the stena, it prevented the Persians from using their massive numbers effectively. Look, it doesn't matter if you have 1,000,000 men if only a few dozen can physically reach the front lines to swing a sword at one time, right? The narrow terrain effectively bottlenecked the entire Persian Empire.
Act 3. Clash with the Immortals. The ultimate battle begins.
The waiting is finally over. The ancient superpowers are colliding head-on, and the pace of the narrative shifts into high gear. The clash itself gives us the core vocabulary word from our chapter's title, mache, the ancient Greek word for battle. And what a mache it was. The textbook tells us that the Greeks fought most bravely, fiercely, and stubbornly, warding off the barbarian forces. Just wave after wave of Persian soldiers crashed into the bronze Spartan shields, and wave after wave was violently turned back in the brutal heat of the mache. To really feel the life-or-death stakes of this mache, listen to this epic battle cry. O children of the Greeks, go on, free your fatherland, and free your children, your wives, and the shrines of your ancestral gods, and the tombs of your ancestors. Now the contest is for all. Wow, this wasn't just some political squabble over borders. For the Greeks, this battle was literally a fight for their civilization and their very existence. Seeing his regular infantry just getting cut to pieces in the Narrows, an infuriated Xerxes decides it's time to play his ultimate trump card. He sends in his bravest elite soldiers.
They were famously known to the Greeks as the Athenaze, the immortals. The word itself is a fascinating piece of vocabulary. The prefix a means without, and thanatos means death, the deathless ones. Xerxes fully expected that these elite, highly specialized killers would easily break the Spartan resistance.
But here is one of the absolute best details preserved in the Athenaze text. When the Athenatoi, the feared immortals, join the battle, they fare no better than the regular infantry. Because they're still fighting in the narrows, the stena, they still can't surround the Greeks or use their numbers. It's so bad that King Xerxes, watching from a distance, is so terrified for his elite army that he leaps out of his throne 3 separate times. It's such a striking image, isn't it? A supposed god king completely losing his composure in the face of Spartan discipline.
Act 4, The Stone Lion Legacy, a tragic conclusion.
Despite their staggering bravery and for all their tactical brilliance in the Narrows, the historic stand at Thermopylae reaches a deeply tragic conclusion. The Greeks were holding the line perfectly until treachery undid everything they had fought for. A local showed the Persians a hidden goat path winding high up through the mountains. This devastating betrayal allowed the Persians to move through the elevated terrain, completely bypass the bottleneck of the Narrows, and attack the Greeks from behind. Surrounded on all sides and knowing their fate, King Leonidas and his Spartans withdrew into the narrowest part of the road and fought viciously to the very last man. All 300 fell.
Sometime after the dust of the Persian wars settled, the Greeks constructed a majestic Leon Lithanos, a stone lion monument, directly on the battlefield of Thermopylae. They carved it to honor their fallen heroes, recognizing Leonidas as the bravest of men. The lion, which is a fierce universal symbol of courage, stood perpetual guard over the hot gates, where the few held back the many.
And this brings us to our final and perhaps most meaningful vocabulary words of the day, mnemea, or mnemeon, which translates to a memorial or monument. But look closely at the root of the word. It's deeply connected to the concept of memory. You see, the stone lion wasn't just a decorative statue. It was a physical mechanism for remembering. It was a mnemeon carved with Greek inscriptions, designed specifically to immortalize those 300 men, so that their ultimate sacrifice would never, ever be forgotten by future generations.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. How does your learning of the Greek language keep the legacy of Thermopylae alive thousands of years later? Think about it. When we learn words like meche, stena, and athanatoi, we aren't just memorizing abstract grammar rules for some test. We are reading the exact same words that were carved onto that mnemeon. By studying Athenaze, you actively become the modern keeper of this epic history. A physical stone lion might weather and erode over millennia, but as long as we can still read and speak their story, their memory remains truly immortal. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious and keep studying those vocab lists.